Someone pointed out to me a YouTube channel called the Thulean Perspective. Presenting this channel, Varg Vilkernes, apologies if I've pronounced the name wrong, did a YouTube episode called the Midwives of Nature. He gave a very interesting opinion about beekeeping, and the thrust of it was that, first of all, beekeepers are solely motivated by profit, and uses a special symbol to denote profit. He then describes beekeepers as thieves and suggests that we shouldn't take honey. My thinking on the subject is a little bit different to Varg's. Do you want to know what it is? Let's find out. Okay, so the stump I'm sitting on about 3 months ago was a relatively mature tree. The council, prior to that, had stuck a notice on the tree trunk saying that the tree had some sort of fungal disease and that they needed to fell it, which they did earlier on in the year. What would have happened if the council left it? Well, perhaps the tree would have eventually got hollowed out, perhaps. I'm not too sure the timescales of this, but we might have been talking years and decades rather than months. And in the cavity which would have formed would have perhaps been a habitat for bees. The point I'm making with this tree stump is that in terms of natural habitats for honeybees, it would have been cavities in trees. These trees, more likely than not, would have been quite mature in age. The problem we have in this modern era is that we've got fewer trees, fewer mature trees, and fewer mature trees with cavities in them. So the whole argument that we shouldn't buy honey and that beekeepers are thieves of hives is an interesting one. But it does beg the question that if tomorrow we ban beekeeping and beekeepers were forced to set loose their honeybees from their hives, where would the honeybees go? Because I don't think there's going to be enough mature trees with cavities in them for all these bees to live. So, as I've mentioned in the clip before, the natural habitat of the bee would have been trees. The trees would need a cavity, the bees would live in the trees, and that's how they originally evolved. And there's some brilliant properties for the bees in trees, or should I say the property of the tree itself. Someone has done some research on the matter, a scientist called Derek Mitchell, and he's looked at the colony mass versus the conductance or the insulation properties of the hive, or in the case of a tree, the habitat. And he concluded that trees were excellent in terms of keeping in heat. And he also looked at the thermal properties of existing hives, and they weren't as good, and in fact some of them, particularly the wooden hives, were pretty poor. The thrust of what this scientist was saying, that bees need to maintain a certain amount of heat to maintain the humidity, to control temperatures for various hygiene and ventilation purposes. Now, if the hive is leaky in terms of airflow, then their ability to control the humidity of the hive is impaired. Now, if the bees are expending excess energy in trying to maintain heat, for instance, or control the temperature if it's a hot day. Then in terms of their energy return on energy invested, that is to say the energy they've taken to gather the nectar to turn into honey, compared to the expenditure of having to use that honey to provide energy for temperature control and humidity. If the balance isn't correctly struck, then they're in danger of starving. If you think of it as a house and you don't have any loft insulation and the windows are broken and they just leak out air, then it's going to take an awful lot of heating resource, whether you put the radiators on or put more logs on the fire or whatever, just to keep that house warm. Conversely, if your house is well insulated, then you don't have to expend so much energy to keep it warm. Similar principles apply. Now, beekeepers have got to be very careful, particularly during the summer months, as to what amount of honey they take. Now, if they take too much, perhaps as we come up to August, then there's a real danger they'll starve. The paradox is that you'll probably find more cases of starvation during the summer months than the winter months. Now, the reason for this is there's two types of bee. I say types, maybe castes is the right word. Now, during the autumn, winter, the queen actually might produce winter bees. This would be stimulated by lack of pollen coming into the hive, and these winter bees would have more body fat and would be able to feed and nurse other bees from this body fat during the spring months. Conversely, during the spring and summer, when pollen amounts increase, summer bees are produced. They don't have any fat on them, and this is why it's important during the spring and summer months that there are stores of food available, because these bees are more vulnerable to starving than, paradoxically, the winter bees. I think in all of this debate, and Varg is not very helpful here using pejorative terms like
thieves and all money grabbers.
Okay, not helpful at all, but I can perfectly understand why he would want to do it. It would make his video controversial. That would get more viewers in, and yes, he does gain revenue from YouTube ads. Varg, my old friend, pots and kettles, isn't it? Pots and kettles. However, we don't have to go back to skeps and hackles, but a skep isn't as good as a tree cavity. So if you really wanted the bees to be natural, then, well, you better find a cavity for your bees in a tree. I don't think you'll be doing that. Anyway, technology has moved on, thankfully. Varg mentioned something about plastic hives. You can get hives which are made out of polystyrene, and I suppose, strictly speaking, they are plastic. But there's something special about this type of polystyrene. It's 3 times the density of ordinary polystyrene. So it's got some hard structural properties to it, but also it's got extraordinarily good thermal properties, which is what you need to replicate some of the thermal benefits of a tree. So let me just show you one. What I've got, I might just need to reconfigure things, but this is a very light hive. This is a nucleus hive, so it's designed relatively for a young or small colony. and yeah, it's made from polystyrene, as you can probably see, but it's quite dense. Okay. So the bees will be nice and toasty in there. What I might actually do with this one is block up the ventilation, needless Varroa ventilation thing at the bottom. The hive has got a doorway, so there you go, the bees get in there that way. And if I need to perhaps move the hive, it's got a ventilated door. Once I close it up completely, it's there. So it's very versatile. Versatile, light, quite strong, and it has excellent thermal properties. So I think the future, I know people of the community that Varg speaks to, I can perfectly understand that when the shit hits the fan, that perhaps things like polystyrene may not be available, and some beekeepers who want to carry on might have to go back to skeps and hackles like Varg does. But one of these, as long as they're looked after, repaired, painted, and you can repair them, will probably last 30 years if longer. So it might be something you might want to treat as an heirloom. I think it would last much longer than the wooden hives. Is it biodegradable? No, but you know, in the scheme of things, there's going to be a lot of crap around from our industrial present, which will take ages to get out of the system. So this will do a lot of good. I think we need to treat the whole matter, us beekeepers. Some of us are quite conscientious. We are midwives of nature, but we're providing them a bit of a lifeboat. When the shit hits the fan, maybe there'll be more chance for trees to grow. That being said, it can take decades, if not a century or two, for a tree to mature and for a tree to develop a cavity. So getting at this point in time future generations of honeybees through this hump, this bottleneck, as the shit hits the fan and things start to collapse, is a worthwhile thing. Yes, I sell honey. Things cost money. People like me have to eat, but we actually not only look after bees, but we actually do queen rearing. So we're actually trying to increase the population of the honeybees. That being said, whilst on the accounting sheet we're trying to increase the population of the honeybees, on the debit side you have modern agriculture, particularly with their use of pesticides and the fact that they do want to take all the natural habitats and convert it into fields. We sort of make hopefully a net gain in terms of the honeybee population, and I can't see why it is wrong for us to get something in a monetary sense to keep the mission going. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, press the like button. I will have more videos coming out in the near future, so please subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the section below. Bye for now.